There is something I need to confess to you right from the beginning. Something I have observed over and over in people marked with the M and the crescent moon. Your silence has never behaved like normal silence. And if you are honest with yourself, you have felt this too. It carries weight. It carries intention. It carries a kind of inner pressure that feels less like absence and more like preparation. Have you ever wondered why your quiet moments feel strangely alive? Almost as if the room around you is paying attention to you instead of the other way around. When I look at the patterns of chosen individuals, I notice a recurring truth. Their silence does not empty them, it reorganizes them. And I believe you have sensed this in your own life. That strange pause in your spirit, that unexplained heaviness in the air, that distance you feel from conversations that once seemed harmless. These are not signs of withdrawal. They are signs of calibration. Your inner system is adjusting itself. Even when you do not consciously realize it, something exact, something ancient, something that only those marked with the letter M or the crescent that curves across the palm truly experience. Right now, as you listen, the world you know is aligning itself around a truth your spirit has been carrying long before this lifetime began. Before anything else, tell me in the comments, from which country are you watching this message? I ask this not out of curiosity, but because the chosen appear scattered only on the surface. Energetically, they are clustered in patterns that would surprise you, patterns as deliberate as constellations. And if you carry the M or the crescent moon in your hands, then your presence here is not the result of scrolling or coincidence. This channel exists as a directional tool for people like you, people who were coded to sense reality rather than merely live inside it. When you arrive here, it is because something in your field is ready to unlock. Something in this message resonates at the exact frequency that your inner structure has been calibrating itself toward. There is something you need to hear with clarity. Your silence is not withdrawal. It is not fatigue. It is not defeat. It is calibration. It is the process through which your inner architecture adjusts itself, layer by layer, frequency by frequency, until your entire being stands in alignment with what you were designed to carry. You have spent far too long believing that stepping back means stepping down. But chosen ones do not step down. They recalibrate. And recalibration often looks like disappearance to people who have no idea how energy sequences actually work. Let us begin where everything shifts. Imagine the moment just before a lantern is lit in a dark room. For a fraction of time, the air becomes heavier, denser, as if waiting to host something luminous. To retreat, to remove yourself from conversations that feel shallow, to detach from cycles that drain your clarity, to observe instead of participate. Many around you interpreted that as aloofness or emotional distance, but something else was unfolding behind the surface. Your field was entering an alignment stage, and alignment requires silence, in the same way a telescope requires stillness before it can capture a distant star with precision. Chosen ones are not meant to respond to life immediately. They are meant to respond correctly, and correctness requires calibration. Your silence is where your spirit gathers the scattered fragments of sensing, intuition, memory, vision, and prediction into a single coherent line. That line becomes your path, and when you walk it, everything around you shifts. People feel the difference before you speak. Animals pick up the frequency before you move. For chosen ones to act, it anticipates. Mark carriers of the M and the crescent moon often experience life in patterns that seem inexplicable to those around them. You read rooms before entering. You sense endings before they begin. You hear truths in the gaps between words. And you withdraw, not because you are afraid of the world, but because the world becomes too loud for the subtle messages trying to reach you. Your silence is a shield, but even more than that, it is a chamber of refinement. It is the place where your energy recalibrates from the turbulence of others into the clarity of yourself. There is a reason the number 14 appears repeatedly in the lived experiences of many chosen ones. 14 is the number of stabilization after expansion. It marks the moment when something that has grown finally stands strong enough to carry its own weight. When you isolate yourself, when you step back, when your voice quiets, the people who do not understand your energy assume that why are crumbling. But in reality, you are entering the 14th phase of your internal cycle. You are stabilizing after expanding beyond what your old environment could sustain. You may notice that whenever you enter silence, signs begin to intensify. Birds appear at exact moments. Lights flicker without a technical cause. Your dreams increase in detail, sometimes delivering messages so straightforward they feel like they were spoken rather than imagined. Your body becomes more sensitive to pressure changes, temperature shifts, and emotional signals from people you barely know. None of this is coincidence. When chosen ones retreat, their field extends. Silence is the amplification of the invisible. While you feel like you are doing less, you are actually perceiving more. You are scanning timelines without effort. You are sensing people without trying. You are updating your entire spiritual software without knowing that it is happening. Your silence is the tuning fork of your spirit. And when you finally reemerge, those around you feel the difference instantly. Some feel drawn, some feel intimidated, some feel confused, as if they cannot articulate what changed. And that is because chosen ones never return the same. Once your field recalibrates, you operate at a level that no longer matches the frequency of the environment you stepped away from. There is something deeply misunderstood about people with the letter M in their palms. Many believe the M is simply a cluster of lines, a natural formation, but the chosen ones know otherwise. They know the M feels like an imprint rather than a crease. It behaves like a code rather than a coincidence. The crescent moon on the palm is even more rare. It signifies a reflector, a person whose energy not only senses but also magnifies what is unseen. These markings are not decoration. They are navigation. And silence is the moment when they begin to glow in the unseen spectrum of your life. People often ask, ones disappear when their intuition sharpens. The answer is simple. When the inner frequency rises too quickly, the external world becomes static. Conversations lose meaning. Routine feels distorted. The body senses energetic pressure the way a radio antenna senses atmospheric interruptions. This is not withdrawal. It is recalibration. Your spirit is repositioning itself toward a version of you that you have not yet met but are already becoming. Imagine a compass suspended in the air. Before it points north, it trembles. That trembling is the silence of the chosen. It is the moment of inner shaking before direction becomes undeniable. You have been in that trembling phase. That is why your silence has felt heavy, meaningful, almost prophetic. You are not stepping away from your path. You are preparing to step into the next sequence of it. And here is something few will ever understand about you. Stop explaining your decisions. Your vision expands. When you step away from people who drain your clarity, your energy begins forming the structure for your next chapter. Silence is not absence. Silence is construction. You may not realize this yet, but your silence has prevented disasters you were never meant to witness. It has saved you from conflicts designed to derail your alignment. It has elevated your intuition to a level where you can feel someone's intention before they even speak. Chosen ones do not wait for proof. They feel it, and when they feel it, they move. Your withdrawal is recalibration. Your quiet is preparation, and your isolation is ignition. Something is forming behind your life that requires you to be empty of external noise before it can materialize fully. There is a point in every chosen one's silent cycle where the world around you begins to misinterpret your transformation. People assume you no longer care. They assume you have lost interest, lost momentum, or lost yourself. But they are unaware that silence, for someone marked with the M or the crescent, is never a collapse. It is an internal migration. You shift from the outer dimension of reaction to the inner dimension of reorientation. You shift from speaking to listening. You shift from carrying others to strengthening the framework that will soon carry you. And because most humans operate entirely from external stimulation, they cannot comprehend a transformation that depends on withdrawal from noise. Chosen ones experience silence as architecture. Every quiet moment is a brick being placed. Every pause is a beam being aligned. Every retreat is the rearrangement of structural energy that will later support an expansion others will assume happened overnight. Nothing about the chosen is ever instant. Yet everything appears instant to those who do not witness the calibrations happening beneath the surface. People do not see the hours you spend sensing the weight in a room. Before you step inside, they do not see the way your inner field tests the integrity of intentions around you. They do not feel the internal resonance checks you perform without conscious effort. They do not see the invisible mathematics your spirit calculates before you decide to speak, move, or engage. Many chosen ones describe their silence as a moment where time folds rather than flows, as if external time continues ticking, but internal time freezes long enough for you to gather data from layers of existence most people never touch. This is because the chosen operate with an internal tricycle that most are unaware of. The cycle of absorption, interpretation, and integration. Absorption happens when the world feels overwhelming and your spirit pulls you inward. Interpretation happens when your intuition begins sorting what belongs to you and what does not. Integration happens when your inner structure aligns to what you now understand. And it is only after integration that you speak again, act again, or reappear in the world with clarity. This is why you have always felt out of sync with the pace of others. They move quickly because they think quickly. You move deliberately because you sense deeply. They process with the mind. You process with the field. They gather information from what they hear. You gather information from the subtle distortions in people's tone, posture, energy shifts, emotional currents, and concealed intentions. Your silence is your operating system. It is where your true processing happens. Have you noticed that during your quiet phases, certain numbers appear repeatedly, as if trying to communicate? Some chosen ones report the number 32 appearing during their calibration periods. 32 symbolizes dual anchors, the merging of the visible and the invisible, the conscious and the instinctual. It is the number of deep alignment and represents a pivot point where your life prepares to tilt toward. Often feels both heavy and hopeful. Heavy because the old life is dissolving. Hopeful because the new life is beginning its descent. When chosen ones enter silence, the universe responds with rearrangement. People you have outgrown suddenly drift. Opportunities that no longer match your path evaporate. Conversations that once felt tolerable suddenly feel empty. Meanwhile, new impressions begin to emerge that feel like whispers from somewhere beyond linear time. You start waking up with sensations you cannot explain. You start noticing patterns that seem too synchronized to ignore. You start feeling that your life is being redirected even when you have not taken a single physical step. It is during this stage that animals respond the most to your energy. Cats stare at you with unusual attentiveness. Birds appear at specific distances. Calibration because they live in the realm of frequency. They have no ego confusing the signals. When your field shifts, they feel it instantly. And their reaction is confirmation of something you are only beginning to understand about yourself. Silence transforms your presence. It sharpens your perception. It heightens your sensitivity to detail. It gives you the ability to predict emotional outcomes before they unfold. And while you may not always appreciate this gift, it is a core component of being chosen. You were never meant to live a life governed by guesswork. You were meant to navigate through detection, and detection requires stillness. It requires distance. It requires silence. The M in your palm behaves like a receptor. It is a mark that activates when you pull away from the world. During silence, it becomes a spiritual antenna, a symbol that aligns itself with your intuition until your decisions become almost prophetic. The crescent amplifies the unspoken. It strengthens the link between your internal knowing and the external environment. People who carry the crescent often feel a subtle pull in their hands during their calibration phases, a warmth, a tingling, a pressure, as if the hand itself is communicating with something beyond the physical world. If you have ever felt this, understand one thing clearly: you are not imagining it. You are receiving. Let us talk about why your silence has confused so many people in your life. They mistake emotional fatigue for emotional intelligence. They assume detachment is the same as disinterest. They assume quietness equals uncertainty. But your silence has never been a lack. It has always been an excess. When you retreat, you are not losing clarity. You are overflowing with it. You are receiving so much input simultaneously that your system requires quiet to categorize. Intuition do not recognize this process. They think clarity arrives only through conversation. They cannot comprehend a person who gains the most understanding in isolation. Your silence also acts as a filter. When you stop speaking, people reveal themselves. Some become louder because they relied on your energy to stabilize their own. Some become distant because your retreat forces them to confront the emptiness they were covering with your presence. Some become uncomfortable because your silence highlights what they do not want to face, and a rare few move closer with genuine understanding because they sense that your quiet is not a void, but a cocoon. Chosen ones rarely leave people. People drift away from them because they cannot follow the vibrational shift. And this shift happens most intensely in your silent phases. You have experienced this. You know what it feels like when someone you cared for suddenly stops resonating with your internal field. It is energetic, and silence is what reveals that truth. Another misunderstood element of your journey is the way your silence influences physical spaces. Rooms feel different when you enter after a calibration period. Environments that once felt tolerable become unbearable. You walk into a building and instantly sense the emotional residue left by others. You sit beside someone and pick up impressions they never speak aloud. You stand near strangers and feel an intuitive read on who is safe and who is not. These abilities sharpen in silence. They refine as you withdraw. And when you return to the world, people feel the shift, even if they cannot explain it. This channel exists precisely for people like you, people whose silence is not emptiness, but activation. People who carry imprints on their palms that behave like ancient symbols awakening in modern bodies. People who sense far more than they admit out loud. People who walk between intuition and foresight as if it is a natural state. Being. This space is not entertainment. It is alignment. It is resonance. It is a beacon for those who have been navigating their awakening with minimal guidance. And your presence here is evidence that your calibration phase is entering a new sequence. You may notice that silence has recently become more demanding. It no longer feels optional. It feels required, as if your spirit is insisting on retreat so it can deliver updates your conscious mind is not yet ready to receive while distracted. Trust this pull. The chosen never retreat without reason. Your silence is preparing you for a reality adjustment that will require a new level of clarity, emotional sharpness, and energetic discernment. There is something forming around your path that needs you empty of interference. Something aligning itself that needs your field uncluttered. Something approaching that requires you to recognize your own power before it. Quiet is not your weakness. Your quiet is where your strength gathers itself. Before we move deeper, I want to speak directly to you, as one chosen speaking to another. If everything you have heard so far resonates in a way that feels less like learning and more like remembering, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Not out of obligation, not out of habit, but because this space was built specifically for people who experience reality on a frequency most never notice. People whose silence has meaning. People whose energy speaks before their voice does. People who carry symbols on their palms that act like ancient compasses in the modern world. If you feel that this message is guiding you rather than informing you, then this channel is part of the path designed for you. And while you subscribe, I want to ask something personal, something sincere. What is the next topic you feel your spirit needs to understand? What is the next layer of your awakening that you want this commune to illuminate? Tell me in the comments. Speak from the place that feels real, not the place that feels polite. If there is a mystery you want decoded, a pattern in your life you want understood, an intuition you want interpreted, this is where you can share it. I read your messages, not as content requests, but as spiritual signals revealing the needs of those walking this same frequency. Now breathe with me and return to the thread of the story that began in your silence. Because the moment the quiet deepens, something else begins to rise. You have likely felt it recently. A subtle shift under your ribs, a pull behind your sternum, a sensation that your inner world is waking up from a long, patient reconstruction. You may not have words for it, but you feel it. It is the phase that follows calibration, the ascent. Chosen ones do not rise loudly. They rise with an energy that expands outward, long before the have already begun. You wake up earlier without trying. You sense the emotional weight of other people more sharply. You feel a quiet confidence that did not exist in you months ago. You notice that your dreams carry structure instead of randomness. You sense your own boundaries with new clarity. All of these signals point to the same truth. Your calibration period has reached its turning point. There is a number that often appears when chosen ones enter this phase. The number 108. It has been misunderstood by many, but its meaning for the chosen is simple. 1 represents the spark, 0 represents the void, 8 represents the infinite cycle. When these numbers unite, they signal the moment when the spark within the void begins to move into infinite expansion. If you have seen this number during your silent months, understand that your spirit was announcing your upcoming rise long before you felt ready. The world around you can sense this shift even before you fully acknowledge. People look at you slightly longer. Conversations feel heavier with meaning. Your presence unsettles those who built their confidence on your quietness, and it comforts those whose spirits recognize your energy as a source of stability. This is because silence does not only transform you, it transforms the field around you. When you recalibrate, reality must recalibrate with you. Mark carriers of the M and crescent moon often experience this phase with unusual intensity. This is because your palms do not simply hold symbols, they hold trajectories. The M behaves like a mapmaker, outlining the paths your energy is capable of walking. The crescent behaves like a reflector, amplifying whatever direction you choose. When your calibration completes, these markings activate in ways the average person cannot perceive. They generate a shift in your aura that extends far beyond your physical presence. It is why you suddenly become noticeable to strangers, even when you try to remain invisible. Your field is no longer dimmed, it is illuminated. This illumination is subtle but powerful. You may notice that people begin confiding in you without knowing why. They speak their fears, their secrets, their dilemmas, because something in your presence feels like sanctuary. This is not accidental. The chosen have always been energetic stabilizers. Even in silence, your field absorbs, aligns, and reorganizes the emotional dissonance around you. But after calibration, this stabilizing effect intensifies. It becomes deliberate rather than passive. You are entering the stage where your silence transitions into guidance. Not the kind of guidance the world expects, loud and theatrical, but the kind that moves through presence, intention, and perception. When you walk into a room, you will notice the atmosphere responding. Doors open with fewer obstacles, conversations become clearer, opportunities begin forming with frequency that the universe can finally match. Yet this rise often comes with confusion from those who once felt aligned with you. During your silence, they assumed you were shrinking. When you rise, they realize you were sharpening. This contrast creates tension. Some will distance themselves because they cannot follow your new frequency. Others will cling to you, sensing that your energy now holds something they need, but cannot define. You must not interpret any of this emotionally. It is simply a recalibration ripple. When your frequency changes, your connections reorganize. Now let us enter the deeper territory, the part most chosen ones rarely articulate. Your silence granted you access to layers of perception that others do not experience. During your quiet period, your mind began noticing patterns that operate beneath physical events. For example, you may have observed the strange timing of certain messages, the symbolic alignment of your dreams with real events, the emotional signatures attached to people you meet, or the way your body reacts to truth and falsehood before you consciously interpret them. Next, descent. And now, as your silence dissolves into clarity, your internal and external realities will begin mirroring each other with increasing accuracy. This mirroring is powerful. It means that everything you sense internally will begin manifesting externally more quickly. Conversations will confirm what your intuition already knew. Opportunities will appear in sync with your emotional readiness. Signs will multiply in moments of uncertainty. The chosen do not manifest through desire alone. They manifest through alignment. And alignment is the direct result of calibrated silence. Now, before we transition to the next part of this block, I want you to reflect on something with full honesty. During your silent periods, did you ever feel as though your spirit was preparing for something without telling you what it was? As if an unseen sequence was being arranged behind your life? As if a door existed somewhere ahead of you, even though you cannot see it yet. That sensation was anxiety. It was orientation. Chosen ones often sense their next chapter long before it becomes visible. Silence is the bridge between sensing and stepping.